To explore the problem space of teens, we first needed to empathize with them in order to understand their needs. To do this, we conducted dozens of interviews with 13 to 18-year-olds to better understand their daily lives and issues they have in relation to the pandemic. From these interviews, many valuable data points were obtained. When asked how she would be different had she not grown up with technology, 18-year-old Paige said, "I probably would have picked up on a few more hobbies. I probably would have been a little more well-rounded. I don't play any instruments, but I probably would have picked one up had I not watched TV or been on social media as much as I was." In two other interviews, Ven and Brandon expressed similar dissatisfaction with the effect social media and video games have on their productivity. Another 18-year-old, Tony, expressed interest in an app that would limit time spent on social media as a method for combating the negative effects it has on productivity. Research in this field backs up the feelings these teens described, as intense social media use has been linked to lower mental health, which results in lower productivity. It's not a coincidence that Paige said she feels like she has few hobbies. Studies have shown that increased social media use results in the neglect of hobbies and activity in general. Teens suffer from low productivity due to increased social media use in the pandemic and want a simple remedy in the form of a mobile application. As Tony had expressed in the interviews, an app for teens that could help them get off social media would help them get back to being more productive. Depending on the type of phone you have, there may be some functionality to set time limits on apps and track app usage, but this doesn't solve the problem of distracting apps being one touch away. Instead, a new app that expands upon these principles would provide more effective means of reducing distractions for teens. The app that I came up with allows you to essentially create different profiles on your phone for different workspaces like you would on a computer. For example, you might have a workspace for school that only shows relevant apps like notes, calculators, etc., and hides any distractions like social media. To conceptualize some ways the app may look, we did an activity where 8 different people were given the brief pitch of the app and had 1 minute to draw their idea for what it would look like on paper. These were very low fidelity depictions, but they got me thinking of various ways it could be implemented. Continuing with the paper prototypes, I drew some UI mockups for 3 different screens for the app and tested them with my peers using basic tasks. After testing, I went back and tweaked the design to one that I felt looked cleaner and easier to navigate. I felt like these 2 areas were rather cluttered, so I addressed that in my second design. I also wanted to use some design patterns that are familiar so people don't have to guess how to navigate the app. Some of these include toggle switches, back arrows, X icons, plus icons, and ellipses. Okay, so this is my workspace prototype, and I basically wanted the app to be as simple and easy to understand as possible because currently, I touched on it earlier, the only functionality for limiting app usage in iOS is basically going into the menus and individually setting time limits for each app, and it's kind of cluttered and hard to manage, so I wanted to have it all in one space where users could just in one touch be in like a totally new workspace. And you can see some of the design patterns that I have here. I have the ellipses, which let you edit pre-existing workspaces, and then the plus icon lets you create a new one. So if we click this, it takes us to the main menu where you can edit the attributes of the workspace. And so if you click here, you can change the name of it. And then I don't have the cover image or the app layout implemented yet, but that's what you would click if you wanted to add an image with the plus icon. And then these forward arrows indicate that there is another menu that opens when you click them, another standard design pattern. So if we click this, it takes us to the app permissions page, which has these toggle switches, which are another design pattern that are very, very popular. So users should be able to immediately understand the function of it. And then the back icon, another standard design pattern. And if you hit back again, then it will have the workspace saved. And if you wanted to go back inside the workspace, you would hit the ellipse. And then it takes you back to this page. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, I just wanted to have it to be as simple and easy to understand as possible. Some questions that I felt were important to test were 1. Are users able to create and manage their workspaces? And 2. Do users feel having workspaces would be helpful? The first question will hopefully validate my design choices for the app, while the second will hopefully validate all of the research that is pointed towards teens wanting apps that help productivity. The first task was to create a new workspace, give it a name, edit the app permissions, and save it. Of 6 users, there were quite a few misclicks, but I think that's mainly from confusion about what the task was, because all of the users still interacted with the design patterns as intended. 66.7% of users completed the task on the expected path, while 33.3% deviated from the path, but still completed the task. I asked the testers if the layout of the app was intuitive, to which all responded yes. Next, I asked what the impact of social media has on their productivity, and the average was 4.3, indicating it generally harms productivity. Then I asked to what degree my app might affect productivity, and the average response was 7.5, indicating it would be fairly beneficial. Overall, I'm very pleased with the results because they answered both of my questions. The users were successful in navigating the app and agreed that it would be beneficial for them. To test further, I would hope to expand upon the prototype and make the layout a little bit cleaner. I would also create more focused questions so users don't get lost. This process has taught me a lot about the development of apps and all the thought that goes into it before anything is even built. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch.